So maybe, well, let's start with um, defining enlightenment, because that's the theme
Mm,
uh, for our discussion today, and it's a big theme. So different people have different ideas and
sure.
conditions.
Hmm.
Um, in the Sufi tradition, also, they have the term uh, polishing the mirror. So
First,
if you're
yeah,
looking at the mirror in the bathroom, if it's covered with dust and grime and it's dirty, you can't really see your face.
right.
So when you, so it's not like um, there's anything wrong with you. It's just that the mirror is dirty. So what we're
Mm,
doing now in our journey is polishing, cleaning that mirror, so we can see our true face, so we can see ourselves clearly. And in the Hindu tradition, they talk about the samskaras. Also in the Buddhist tradition, they talk about samskaras. So the sankaras or samskaras are these tendencies, subconscious tendencies, um, where we have belief systems about not being good enough, or not being strong enough, or not being powerful enough, or not being beautiful enough, or not being divine enough. So we create this veil of separation that they call Maya, which then becomes a limitation where we self-impose these limits on ourselves. It's not, the limits are not real, but we create these limits with our mind in order to believe that we're not enough. So this is the nature of this veil of Maya. And so our job now is to uh, take out that veil, to remove that veil, so we can see clearly, so we can see our true face clearly. Yeah, it's a paradox. So the mind creates these limits, the mind creates these separations, and then we pretend that we are small, insignificant creatures in this great big universe. So let me give you an illustration. So imagine that this is like a huge big circle.
mm,
For most of us, we are this tiny little point inside this great big universe. So as long as we're stuck inside of this veil of Maya, that's how we see reality. We are this tiny little insignificant um, point in this huge, um, infinite universe. And for the mind, that feels natural. Of course, that's the way it is. Of course, we are these, separate creatures in this vast universe. But imagine if we can turn that around. Imagine if we can say, this is who I am. And the entire physical universe is one tiny point inside me.
でも、
That's another completely different perspective, which is equally real. So, on the level of soul, this is true. On a level of mind, the opposite is true. So, this journey of enlightenment is about breaking out of the perceptions of the mind into a true perception that's based on the soul. Yeah, so when the mind and the soul are fully integrated together, both become true. We are the universe, and the um, idea of separation is an illusion. And we also operate in a human way on this earth in third dimensional reality. And so it's about training the mind, it's about training our perceptions, it's about raising the frequency of our um, of who we think we are, and that automatically changes the experience. So, so imagine somebody like Ramana Maharshi. So, I think most of you have heard about him. He was an enlightened master in South India. Yeah, or someone like Lao Tzu, someone like Jesus, someone like Buddha. These are all enlightened masters that we know about. And what we do is we put them up on a pedestal. We think, oh, they are capable of becoming enlightened, but I'm not. I'm just this, you know, puny human. I don't have what it takes to achieve that. It's only for a very, very few people after a long struggle, after a lot of meditation, only then can they achieve the state called enlightenment. So how true is that? How many of you believe that? Okay, yeah. I mean, most of us do. And the problem is that belief system itself is what is the dirt on the mirror. So, the truth is we're already enlightened. The truth is we're already one with everything. We already have this vast consciousness. But because of this belief that we're separate, that we're insignificant, that we are this one tiny little piece of separate reality, it becomes true for us. Our perceptions make it real for us. Okay, so what happens at night when you sleep? The conscious mind shuts down, and the astral body and the soul body um, take off. They explore these vast dimensions, they experience this oneness with all things. Yeah, we wake up in the morning and it's like very vague remembrances of a dream. And even those vague memories are like just like um, once the mind starts to process that, we create a different reality. We no longer experience ourselves as one with all there is. So on the other hand, sometimes people when they experience psychedelic substances or mushrooms, they have this experience of total oneness and openness and one and vastness. But then over a period of time, the mind becomes stronger and we forget that experience, so it becomes just a dream. So the key to this, the key to this is the activation of what some people refer to as DMT in the pineal gland. So when the DMT is active, we experience oneness. For most people, though, the DMT has become, it's like an organ that's become really um, um, dormant from lack of use. So there are shamans, there are visionaries who have that pineal gland active enough and open enough that they can experience alternate realities at will. So how can we activate the DMT? How can we open our perceptions so we can live in this world of unified reality all the time, simultaneously? And so take a moment and imagine what your life would be like um, if your pineal gland was fully functioning all the time, if you could live in that awareness of unity consciousness all the time. How would that affect your life, your relationships, your work, um, your morals? So, on a scale of 1 to 10, um, how much do you really want this? Or would it be too much of a disruption of your life? So, forget about whether or not it's possible. The first question is, do you really want this? If this is possible, how much do you really want that to live in this unity consciousness? We all want to be in that intense state. We want to see um, the world differently. We want to live in a state of harmony and love and beauty. Um, it's what we want from the soul. So the soul says yes. Maybe the heart even says yes. But the mind, what does the mind say? No, it's not possible.
で、
I'm not good enough.
いう
It's
ふう
an
に言い出す。
illusion. And, only a few people are capable of doing this. So what we're learning is to shift our state of experience from the mind to the soul. The soul already knows. The soul is already one. But it's like that's the dirt on the mirror where we can't see that we're already living in oneness. We're already living in harmony and beauty. So, remember, I think about 2 months ago, we were talking about the awakening, the collective awakening that's happening right now, where, once we're through this process of shift, we'll all be automatically living in that state of oneness. It's not just a few people, it's not just some of the time, but all of us, all the time, living in that state of oneness. It's like that dog, that just came into your room. Animals live in a state of oneness because the mind isn't interfering with that. So, why is it that humans have developed this idea of separation? What's the evolutionary advantage of that? When you see the life cycle of a human, when we are children, we live in wonder, we live in joy, we live in a state of unity consciousness. It's all the time. And when you look into the eyes of a child, they're innocent, they're beautiful, they don't know that it's possible to live in separation and fear and doubt and pain. They are automatically living in the state of unity. And then something happens when they're maybe 2 years old, 3 years old, when the social conditioning, the subconscious conditioning starts to take over. And it tells them, no, you're not good enough. You're not strong enough. You're not wise enough. All these, the the conditioning that then shrinks their consciousness more and more and more and more until they're trapped inside this big cage. And then by the time we're 7, 8 years old, our minds have completely taken over and control our reality. We've shut down our access to the higher mind, to the spirit, to this state of oneness. So children don't have to meditate for hours to be aware that there are these beautiful, innocent reflections of God. So they're already living in a state of unconscious unity.
っていうのは、子どもたちっていうのはすでに無意識のもう全部が統合しているユニティの中に生きているからです。
The problem is they haven't yet learned how to master this unity. They haven't yet learned how to create from this unity consciousness. And our challenge as we grow into adulthood is to be in a state of conscious unity where we not only know who we are, but can actually create a new world in human society, in physical matter on this planet, using this principle of unity consciousness. And that's our job now. So, this is what we're here on earth for. This is what we're learning to do. And it's very easy, actually.
実は、
So the key is to learn how to access other levels of the mind beyond the rational mind, beyond the logical mind, so that we can open to a higher frequency of consciousness where our sense of unity consciousness becomes normal once again. So you've heard about the difference between the right brain functions and the left brain functions. the left brain being more of the logical functions, the right brain being more of the intuitive and creative functions. And our job is to bring them together. So here you have the left hemisphere, and here you have the right hemisphere. And between, there's this membrane called the corpus callosum, which connects these two functions of the brain. And in a child, if they haven't been trained to create separation and to think in terms of limitation, then the connection between these two hemispheres of the brain stays open. And that's what we're learning to do now. It doesn't take years and years of sitting in a cave and meditating. It doesn't mean becoming a perfect person. It doesn't even mean doing anything. So then the question is, all right, then what do we do? How? So it's about reprogramming the mind, reprogramming the brain. And so that's what our journey is about. So many of the healing practices that people have learned and practiced over the years are about the reintegration of the brain hemispheres. It's about uniting the sensory perceptions and the extrasensory perceptions. And to go back to what we started with, it's about activating the DMT in the pineal gland.
で、
It's just as simple as that. Once
そ
the
れくらい、
DMT is activated, unity consciousness happens. So, how do we activate the DMT? There are several ways to do this. What happens when a person dies? So, when the person dies, the heart stops. And when the heart stops, the Merkaba, which is the geometry that connects our five bodies, breaks down. When the Merkaba collapses, that activates DMT, and then the soul can leave the body using that burst of DMT, and then the person
え
dies.
ー
So, all right, so we don't have to necessarily leave the body. We don't have to die in order to experience enlightenment. That's one way. But then what's the point then? Why are we here? Many people have had near-death experiences where maybe they have a heart attack, the heart stops, the person leaves the body, and then uh, they immediately rush to hospital. You're put on a um, resuscitator, and they start uh, the heart going again, and then the soul can come back. And then they describe these experiences, this incredible beauty and oneness and love that they experience, and it changes their life forever. So I'm curious how many of you have had those kind of near-death experiences?
ね
Okay.
ね
Yeah. So this is something that a lot of nurses who work in hospitals hear these stories, and they hear these stories, but then they're not allowed to share them with the world. The whole medical profession is based on these separate realities. In many shamanic cultures, people were taught how to do this. They were taught how to leave the body and come back. They were taught how to experience other realities and then bring that memory back with them to be able to enhance their day-to-day functioning, to bring back a vision. Or people were taught how to leave the body at night, travel into all these um, astral dimensions, come back um, and remember those travels. So it's called out of body travel. And
または、
it can be a very conscious thing. And the good news, as I was sharing a couple months ago, is that when the magnetic field of the Earth drops to a certain point, it disengages the five bodies from each other. It allows us to actually connect with that unity consciousness that the soul experiences, and then come back into the physical body when the magnetic fields reorganize themselves with awareness, with memory, with um, complete transformation of our sense of who we are. So all these things are happening. They're happening naturally, spontaneously. Nothing can stop it. Within a period of, say, the next 20, 30 years, this will become normal. The magnetic field of the Earth is collapsing, it's reorienting. We'll all be going through some kind of a collective DMT experience. So if you're here for that shift, over the next 20, 30 years, you'll be living in that 10 experience pretty much all the time. So I want you to really understand that, to really see if you can believe that. So as your mind opens to that possibility, subconsciously it begins to already start um, coming into the experience of it. And then the heart starts to believe in it, and then it starts to open to that possibility. And when the heart opens, the emotions are very powerful. The emotions then begin to um, create a different reality. Our desires, our aspiration, our passions, our focus, everything changes. So, the emotion is much stronger than the mind, except that we've let the mind control our emotions. That's the problem with much of our culture today. We've let the mind decide um, what our reality should be, rather than letting our hearts um, open to our experience of reality. So, what I want to say is that there's not much that we have to actually do to make this real, because this is a natural state. We just have to surrender, we just have to get out of the way, we just have to keep that mirror clean. We just have to know that it's possible, that this is the truth of who we are. That it's not about just one experience of being in 10 reality and then slipping back down into 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It can be a daily, consistent experience of all of us in this new world. So, what we're dealing with is this veil of Maya, this veil of illusion. It's not real, but it acts as if it's real. The mind creates this veil. The subconscious patterns of our history in the Kali Yuga of the last 6,000 years has created this veil, and we think that this is how things are. It's time to drop it now. So, according to some Vedic scholars, the Kali Yuga actually ends on March 21st of this year. So, what that means is basically, as soon as we come to an end of the Kali Yuga, this veil of Maya starts to get um, starts to collapse a little bit, and then it takes time, but it gets easier and easier to let it go. After this point, people spontaneously, all of us, start to have these experiences of greater and greater oneness, of living in that 10 state. So, how does that feel when I say that? Okay. Yeah. And those fears are natural. It's okay. Because when the mind starts to dissolve, we all have a fear. Oh my God, I'm going to lose it. I'm going to go crazy. I won't know what to do because we are so used to controlling our reality with the mind. It's
まず
become
それ
like
は、
this is normal now. So many of us are already beginning to go through what's called ascension symptoms. So these are like reactions from the mind, and the body starts going through a process of um, disconnection and illness and fear, or sense of being crazy, just because the mind is now going into fear and trying to control reality and resisting this light that's coming in. So as more light comes in, our frequency of the frequency of our physical body and our subtle bodies starts to change. And then the fear comes up. Oh my God, this is too much.
そう
And you
すると、それ
try
が
to shut it down.
ね、
And then the illness that comes up is not because of the frequency, it's because of our resistance to this higher frequency. Yeah, so remember that this is key. Any discomfort, any illness, any problems that we experience is not because of the higher frequencies that are coming in, it's because of our subconscious resistance to these higher frequencies. So that's the difference between if the mind is in charge or the soul is in charge. If the mind is in charge, the fears come up and we resist. If the soul is in charge, we joyfully surrender to this new energy, this powerful symphony. So, what I'd like to share with you today is a way that you can bring that awareness of the soul more forward in your life. And it's a very simple practice. And this comes from the work of Sri Aurobindo and the mother in Pondicherry. It's from the integral yoga tradition. So the soul is actually located here. Let me show you. So this is the region of the heart. The soul is located here in the solar plexus region. You have the physical heart, then the emotional heart, and then you have the spiritual heart,
こ
which
の
is
下に、
out here. So what you can do then is just as a very simple meditation practice, just feel yourself entering into this space, the spiritual heart in the solar plexus region, and as if you're falling into this um, space. It's like you know that story of Alice in Wonderland,
ちょっ
where
と、じゃあ、
she
そうね。
falls into the rabbit hole and goes deeper and deeper all
う
the
ん
way down, and then finally lands. When she lands, she's in a different world.
So
Yeah,
the spiritual heart is soul. Is it the same? Soul
yeah.
is
The spiritual heart is a space. It's not a physical space. It's actually a psychic space deep inside this region of the solar plexus, between the heart and the
okay.
solar plexus. You can actually feel that space. And as you begin to become familiar with this, bring your breath. So pretend you're breathing into that spiritual heart, and then you allow yourself to just fall into it like a bottomless hole, this rabbit hole. And you go deeper and deeper and deeper, and just let yourself imagine that you're just diving in, falling in. And as you do that, the mind just gets out of the way, and you start entering into this other reality. So let's practice that together for a bit. Just close your eyes.
Could you stand again and could you show him where it is the rabbit hole?
Yeah. So the physical reference point is about here. So here's the emotional heart. Here's the solar plexus region.
ます。
And then below that Like here would be the hara. So between the heart and the hara, so this would be the focus point. I'm not saying that it's literally where the psychic being is, because it's not literally in the physical body. But this can be a focal point. As we place our attention there, then we can feel ourselves dropping in deeper and deeper and deeper, entering into this cave, entering into this space, and just surrendering and letting go, letting go, letting go. So Sri Aurobindo refers to this soul space as a psychic being. It's a word that's new for most of us. He just calls it the psychic being because there's so many different definitions of the soul. He didn't want to confuse people, so he created a new term called the psychic being, which is referring to that inmost soul. So you have um, the personality, which is our human aspect of identity. Then you have the inner soul, which is how we experience things through our emotions and our feelings. And then there's that inmost soul, which is the psychic being, which is our true self, a true nature. It's beyond emotions, it's beyond mind. So you cannot actually experience it just through emotions or just through thought. It's below that. And that's why you have to actually feel as if you're just going down this rabbit hole, falling in, deeper, diving, 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 until you just experience yourself in that bottomless pit of the soul. So that's basically all you're doing. You're allowing yourself to drop into that psychic being, and you're calling on the energy of the Great Mother or the universe or whatever allows you to experience that state of unity, and then surrendering to that. It's very simple. So for most of us, the psychic being is hidden behind these veils. So now it's a matter of bringing that psychic being forward beyond the veils, so then it can begin to direct and influence our lives. Once we open to that, then you notice that synchronicities start to happen. You're always in the right place at the right time. You meet the right people, the right circumstances. Life becomes easy and fluid and joyful. Um, you're in this flow of life. You're not struggling against things. Um, that's what it means to have the psychic being in charge, to have the soul in charge. Yeah, so I'll just read a couple of sentences from the mother. And she says, concentrate in the heart. This is the spiritual heart, solar plexus area. Enter into it, go within and deep and as far as you can. So just feel yourself just plunging, taking a plunge, diving in, like, Alice in Wonderland, diving into the rabbit hole, falling deep, 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 deep. Um, she says, gather all the strings of your consciousness that are spread about, roll them up, take a plunge, and sink down. So imagine that you're diving into this deep ocean, and then just let yourself go. You allow the ocean to take you, to carry you. You allow the mother to receive you and welcome you, and you surrender to that. Just allow. That's the key. Once you take that first step and make the plunge, then you just allow your soul to take over. You allow the Great Mother to take over, and just wait in that space. And here's the paradox: when you enter into this plunge into the psychic being, you'll find that the mind stops by itself. You don't have to stop the mind first in order to enter into the psychic being. But as you enter, the mind slowly, slowly begins to drop away. Thoughts begin to drop away. Resistance begins to drop away. Fear begins to drop away. Yeah, so I'll just read that sentence again. Concentrate in the heart. Enter into it. Go within and deep and as far as you can. Gather all the strings of your consciousness that are spread out, roll them up, take a plunge, and sink down. So what we'll do is we'll take a few moments. We'll just allow ourselves to dive in, take time, enter into the silence. So focus on that space of the spiritual heart, solar plexus.
そ
Imagine
れでは太
yourself diving into this deep ocean, and just asking the Great Mother to carry you. And when I say the Great Mother, I'm referring to the universal energy, Shakti, the
僕
spirit
がグレートマ
that
ザー
moves through all things. So you're diving in, this portal starts to open up. Maybe you've heard some people talk about their near-death experience where they die physically. They go through this portal. It's like a tunnel of light. And
えー
then being who says it's not yet time yet, you have to go
うん
back. And then they come back through the portal and
インスタ
continue in
が
this world for as long as they're meant to be here. So you don't have to physically die before you enter into this portal. You can do it the same way by just diving into the psychic being. You'll find yourself entering into this deep silence, this deep void, this deep
お
place of mystery.
大い
All
なる
thoughts stop. So take a few minutes for this, and I'll hold a space where you can more easily enter into that inner silence.
じゃあ
So let's remain in this state now for the next 10-15 minutes, and I'll signal when it's time to come out. Diving deeper and deeper, deeper
もっと深
into
く
the psychic being, into the space, into the deep soul. Don't try, just allow, surrender, let go. Even the effort of diving in drops away You're just simply being carried now by the energy of the soul, the energy of the Great Mother. So in the Sufi tradition, they have the concept of the sacred heart or the winged heart. All of you are probably familiar with the Sufi poet Rumi, the mystical Sufi poet. So this mystical heart is the same thing that Sri Aurobindo refers to as the psychic being. We'll take a short break of about 10 minutes. You can stay in the meditation silence if you want, or if you need to get something to drink or use the toilet, you can do that. And we'll come back in 10 minutes. Yeah, so that fear of falling down is actually fear of encountering our inner being. And it's natural that we'll feel that. So
And
once you become aware that there's nothing that we need to be afraid of, that we'll be supported, we'll be held, we'll be guided, slowly that fear drops away. Ultimately, a fear of the unknown. And for the mind needs to control reality. The mind needs to control our life. And so we are afraid of the unknown. But once you become familiar um, with this inner space where guidance comes from, where comfort and joy comes from, that fear is completely gone. And
そしてまた、
then you find it really easy to surrender. And the other thing to remember is that this psychic being, this inner space, is not a feeling. That's why it's not, so we call this the emotional heart. And this is the spiritual heart. Because it's deeper than feeling. So sometimes we confuse those two things. We think that if the heart is open, then there needs to be this feeling of unity or joy or oneness. No, it's deeper than that. So that's why when you're falling into the space, it's not a feeling that you're entering into. It's not a thought. It's deeper than that. So as you become familiar with it, then you become aware of the still small voice of the soul. And then you can really feel comfortable with that. No matter what you're feeling, no matter what you're thinking, that connection with the soul um, is such a source of comfort. Okay. Yeah. So it's nice that you can recognize that it's the mind that creates the fear, the stories, the resistance. And this is deeper than the mind. And it's natural to the soul to have this experience of oneness, this experience of fearlessness. So, what if you can commit to 10 minutes every single day to just diving into this sacred heart? 10 minutes. Later, you can expand it if you want, but start with just 10 minutes a day, but every day. And then it's not, you said that um, it's my energy that is supporting you. To some extent, that's true, maybe, because we all enhance each other. But it's not. It's really the soul that once the soul feels safe, that you really want to listen, that you're really interested, then it starts coming forward more and more and more. When you're doing this practice for yourself, don't don't have expectations or judgments. You just, set your alarm for 10 minutes. And then whatever happens in that 10 minutes is fine. There's no good or bad. There's no right or wrong. What you're doing is you're making an appointment with the soul. And then slowly the soul steps forward by itself. The soul starts speaking. The soul starts creating and organizing things in your life. Because it recognizes, okay, if you're really interested, then it can step forward. So, but it's not going to step forward until it knows that you're really serious about this. So it doesn't matter what happens in that 10 minutes. Just dive in and wait, allow, and trust.
いや、
Sometimes
こ
it
れ、
may be this beautiful, powerful, sacred space. Sometimes the mind will be active. Anything is okay. Yeah. So even if you think nothing is happening, even if you think that you've fallen asleep, it's okay. There's a deeper kind of communication that's learning to happen. So in this practice, you're not doing anything. You're not doing any special breathing practices. You're not visualizing anything. You're not making any mantras. You're just diving in with the intention to connect with the soul and surrendering. That's all.
委ね
So
ま
in
す。
other words, you're not in charge anymore. So then the mind can relax and the soul can begin to speak. That's the mind trying to do something. So it's deeper than the mind, remember. It's deeper than the feelings. And then once the soul really comes forward, you'll recognize the voice of the soul very clearly.
So today at the beginning, we were all talking about the pineal gland and then also the DMT activation. So this meditation is anything to do with the DMT activation?
Yes. Yeah. So when the soul begins to come forward, it automatically activates DMT. So the passage that you're making is between the mind and the soul.
うんうん。
So it's like you're creating this passage, you're deepening this connection, and every time you just dive in with that intention, that passage gets stronger. You
なん
start feeling the subtle vibration in the third eye or in the heart or the solar plexus or your whole body. It's like a very subtle humming or tingling
なん
vibration. You might start seeing some kind of blue light. Um, that often happens also when you start making that connection with the soul.
感じで
The
す。
most important thing is there's a sense of joy, of comfort, of safety, of oneness. It builds gradually, but it becomes very, very real for you. Then you can trust that no matter what. And there's a clear guidance that comes from that space.